All right. And for all those that are joining us, we are recording. Now I have to be on my best behavior. Darn it.
Sierra, do you want to put the prompt in the chat?
Yes, 1 second.
Oh, and we're good with the Jamboard also, right?
Yep.
Good.
So as you're waiting for us to start, please add your name, role, school or district, and where you're from in the chat box. We'll see where everyone is from today.
Chattanooga. I love Chattanooga. That's a cool city.
New York, maybe it's as cold as us here in Colorado. Pueblo, California, Arkansas.
Nice. Well, Miami, Florida is definitely warmer than where we're at.
India, what part of India? Social worker, Rhode Island, New Delhi, I've been there. It's beautiful there. Miami, theater teacher.
Nice.
Oklahoma, the Demand Project. Florida, Boys and Girls Club.
Very cool.
Looks like we have a wide range of people from all over the world, which we were talking before you all jumped on how much we love these because we get to interact with people from all over the world. And also the importance of what we do with these and being able to offer this to everyone and the diversity of experience and knowledge from our participants who are here. So we are going to go ahead and get started. You have joined us for Trauma-Informed Teaching Part 2. If you weren't here for Part 1, don't worry, because we'll be doing some quick review and giving you some strategies for moving forward. So as normal, Zoom logistics, just make sure, if to the greatest extent possible, keep your camera on so that we can see everyone. If you'd like, it's helpful to have a few pieces of blank paper to take notes. We're going to be doing some personal reflection and some goal setting. So if you want to use a paper or notes on your phone, whatever, just make sure you have a way to capture your thoughts. When we're in breakout rooms, please engage with each other, stay on task with the questions because we only have a very limited time on each of these breakout rooms to be able to stop. Our stop time is 5:30 Mountain Standard Time. Do your best to stay engaged and present. Please keep your microphone muted when you're not talking. And if you have questions, you can use the little box to raise your hand or just add your comment or idea to the chat box, and we will be monitoring that. So I'm Donna Trujillo. I'm Vice President of Tiered Services and Special Populations with Generation Schools Network. I have been with the organization for I think a little over 4 years now. Previously, I was a director of special education for the third largest district here in Colorado, which had 90 schools. Zach?
Hi, everybody. I'm Zach Hess. I'm a senior education specialist. I've been with GSN a couple of years, and I was with Donna in that same school district, and my role was the director of health, wellness, and prevention. And I'm really happy to be here with everybody.
And so you all know, Sierra did drop this slide, the link to the slides that you'll be getting today, because last forum, some people asked if they could have those to capture notes on. So feel free to click on that. Also, at the end of this session, we will be putting a survey link at the end that you'll fill out. And within that survey link will be your certificate for participation for your continuing education credits. So we'll do that at the end of the presentation. So make sure you can stick around. And if not, if you have to leave early, make sure we get your email so that we can email you the materials and certificate following the training. We will be sending everyone who fills the survey or provides an email the recording and materials after. So our agenda today, you can see we're going to be doing some introductions and warm up, looking at our outcomes, the quick review, like I said earlier, of our last training. You'll be provided with some guiding principles and strategies, and we left time for Q&A. So we love this quote: adopting a trauma-informed approach is not accomplished through any single particular technique or checklist. It requires constant attention, caring awareness, sensitivity, and possibly a cultural change at an organizational level. So Zach and I constantly get, what can we do? What can we do? Give us a list. Tell us what to do. Well, we'll be giving you some strategies, yet also we have to remember it takes a mindset shift and at times a whole organizational shift. So it's not just wave your magic wand and we fix it. It's an ongoing learning experience and trying and testing things each and every day. So outcomes for the forum. Here are the outcomes that we're looking at today. We want you to think about, if you are in a leadership position, how are you going to use these ideas and knowledge to increase your technical and adaptive leadership skills? If you're in a student-facing position, how will you incorporate this knowledge into your practice? So as we're going through this session, be thinking about how you're going to use these tools and what you might do. We will be doing activities to kind of dig deeper into that.
All right, so we're gonna do a little warm-up activity, a little mindfulness activity. If you wouldn't mind, you can either close your eyes or just kind of look down. I mean, if you want to just turn off your camera and do that, that's fine for this exercise. Just want you to start taking some deep breaths. So a nice posture, deep breaths in and out of your nose. We're going to do a little visualization. So I want you to visualize the most inspirational teacher and your favorite classroom environment that you were a part of. So as you're engaging in that breath, you're thinking of the inspirational teacher and that classroom environment that you were part of. If you didn't have that, which I realize that some people did not have those in their lives, imagine what it would have been like. And I want you to go through your senses. Think about what emotions that elicits in you when you're in that classroom with that teacher. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you smell, feel, possibly taste? Just take a couple more deep breaths. Okay. Now we're going to use the Jamboard. I'm sure many of you have used Jamboard before, but we're going to put a link in the chat to the Jamboard. We're going to be going back to this Jamboard quite frequently for some individual reflection. But these reflections, we wanted to put them in a Jamboard because this is the best part of this. When you get a whole bunch of people, we're up almost to 40 people now, and all the amazing ideas that we can gain from each other. So we want to record them in the Jamboard. If you are unfamiliar with it, you're just going to click that link in the Jamboard. You're going to go to the first page and you're going to click the little sticky note. There's a menu on the left-hand side and there's one that looks like a sticky note. You click that and you type in your response. What I want you guys to do right now is share. What was that? What emotions, what feelings did you have? What were some of the senses that you had when you thought and visualized of this inspirational teacher of this inspirational classroom. So we're just take a couple of minutes, go into that Jamboard and write really quickly on a sticky note and paste it in there. Love to see what everyone's thinking. Donna, are you able to get into that Jamboard and see some of those responses? I don't want to not share my screen. Just make sure we give them enough time.
And if you run out of space on this slide of the Jamboard, the second page is the same prompt.
A couple of people are still working, Zach.
Awesome.
Oh, Lucy could not open the Jamboard.
Looks like everyone else is able to get in it, so I'm not sure what
Could
that.
be a pop-up setting.
Yeah, could be. Well, if you can't get into the Jamboard, just write this down for yourself. It's just gonna be something to reflect on as we go through the presentation.
So I'm seeing happiness, warmth, peace, kindness, caring, love, and belonging, free thinking, movement, peer-to-peer queries, a place to participate and learn. Those are some of the things that I'm seeing in there, Zach, just to give a little cap. Okay,
Yeah.
you can go ahead.
Awesome. All right, so a little bit of review. Recognizing the signs of adverse childhood experiences. So we're just going to go really quick because I know we spent a lot of time in the first part of this really getting into this, but just to get this fresh in our minds, what we might see from students in our classrooms or in our schools or in our programs, right? Students that are impacted by adverse childhood experiences might experience difficulty making friends and maintaining those relationships. They might have problems learning. They might, that stress of that might overwhelm them at a time. And so that lower tolerance of stress is going to get behaviors. We might see some memory things. We might see some illnesses. So what we know from this work, again, as a reminder, the brain, as it develops and it's under a lot of stress from these adverse childhood experiences, these things that aren't okay that happen to our kiddos sometimes, it really affects how the brain develops, the brain chemistry, which then actually can affect our body. So there's that ACE study showed it very clearly. There's a higher percentage of people with immune deficiency, with cardiovascular disease, with gastrointestinal. So you'll see some of these kids, you'll see those somatic symptoms in the nurse's office. And I'm sure many people can relate to that, but these are all different signs of it. You know, we don't often know if a kid had adverse childhood experiences. So just paying attention to some of these signs and signals are important. A really quick review on stress, and understanding that stress first starts in that cortex. And the reason it does that, it's an executive functioning, right? It's being able to manage all these things coming at us. And so when our capacity to cope with these different inputs and different stress, we start to go into the other parts of our brain. And eventually it overloads and we get into that survival part of the brain. Now, this isn't a conscious decision. Remember, we talked about this. As frustrating as some of these things are, these outbursts and these things that happen, it's not a conscious decision. It means the brain was overwhelmed, and then the brain is going to go into survival mode. So it's going to go to those neural pathways that were well defined, right? And it's just going to go there automatically because it senses it as a threat. And so now we have to survive. So just that understanding there. What some of the triggers that we really want to pay attention to. We need to understand again and remember that behavior is communication. Now, this works for everybody, but especially our students that have been impacted with adverse childhood experiences. We can take those behaviors very personally. And many of us we don't like things thrown at us. We don't like to be sworn at, like all these things, disruptions of the classroom. These are hard for us to understand. I get that. But understanding that behavior is communication, and those behaviors are probably communicating a need not being met or moving through into those survival parts of the brain. These are some of those common triggers, right? Unpredictability or sudden change. If we reference back to that environment that is, you know, a child had to undergo that had all these adverse childhood experiences, these are things that are chaotic, they're not safe, there's all kinds of things going on. So triggers that can get them into that state and move into the survival brain very quickly are these kind of things. If something like surprises, right? If they don't have any control, if they're feeling rejected, if there's confrontation, you know, if there's sensory overload, and a lot of these things, right, are kind of inherent in teaching and education. So it's really important to pay attention to that. And what are some of the responses we'll get? Well, those are those fight, flight, freeze, submit. Some people will say fawn because it's another F, but the same principle. So fight, flight, freeze, or submit, or fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And those are the typical things you're going to start to see. Again, behavior is communication. And so these kiddos are trying to communicate something else is going on. They've moved into that survival part of their brain, and now they're just trying to survive. And this is how their brain has created safety, right? By doing these things. The window of stress tolerance. Okay, remember we talked a little bit about that executive functioning. If you think of executive functioning as an air traffic control tower at an airport, and it's managing all these inputs coming in, all these airplanes coming in from all different directions, which runway they're going to go, making sure they don't hit each other. It's the same thing. Kiddos, every child has all these demands and things pressuring them at school. Learn this, do that, sit down, get your pencil out. Susie's being mean to me. All these kind of things that are going on. I'm hungry. Right? All these things that they're dealing with. But when you look at someone that's undergone a lot of toxic stress, person on the right, they don't, because of all that, those hormone levels that were increased when they were younger and the way the brain has developed and those pathways that were made, they have a smaller window of tolerance, right? Because everybody has a breaking point. You, me, everybody we can all only take so much stress, and then we break. Right? Well, those kiddos that had that have much less of that. So a simple, please take out your pencil, right? Hey, Zach, I asked you to take out your pencil, right? That seems so easy, so not a big deal, could be a big deal, right? And when you get those crazy responses, just remember, don't take it personally. It might be something else going on, okay? Just a quick reminder of that.
So now we're going to get into the guiding principles for being trauma-informed and responsive. We kind of talked about this at the beginning as an outcome. You have to have an organizational approach, and that means systemic and strategic implementation and a layered continuum of supports. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Also, that felt safety. So Zach came up with this great analogy for this, and it really helps you remember what needs to be done for the components of being trauma-informed and responsive. So we'll be going through each of these in their separate categories to give you more, but you can see the A, B, C, D, E, and we're gonna go on and talk about each of these more. So that organizational approach. So here in Colorado, we have what's called the Colorado multi-tiered systems of support. A lot of other states may call it different things, but anything that has a layered systematic approach is similar to what we do in Colorado. You can see that it's team-driven, data is collected, there's family, school, community partnership, comprehensive screening and assessment system, and that layered continuum. So first step, universal. What do all students need to feel safe? What are they getting at all levels, no matter what classroom they're in? What approach is good? So for trauma-informed, there's some examples, and we have to make sure those are our foundation. And maybe you don't have all of them, but these are things that you can work for. Then that next level, that targeted, you may have students who have small social skill groups. They may be working with the administration and teachers around restorative discipline. Some of our schools have implemented a separate room for a safe space for students to regulate. Even in your classroom, you might have that space. It's where small groups of students come together for something very specific. And then that intensive. Sometimes students need more. They have the universal targeted supports in place, but they need more one-on-one, maybe a safety plan, one-on-one counseling, or support for being safe, IEPs, 504s, ALPs, all of those things may be needed, especially for students who have high trauma backgrounds. And also, we want to make sure that we have these supports at all levels. Because imagine taking it away from a student at any level. So a good example of this, a student is allowed to go and take a break and get a drink of water in one classroom because that's something they need to calm themselves when they're triggered. But then they go to their next teacher and their next teacher says, nope, keep going. Well, that's removed a support that student, it's so easy and helpful for them, and that can create chaos. They re-traumatization, they're told no, rather than being consistent across the board. So when we say that organizational approach, maybe it's not the whole school doing something for a student, but every teacher and every adult they interact with is implementing the same or similar supports, and getting those in place before a student needs them is critical. And then more on the organizational approach. So those organizational commitments, how does that school or district support the well-being of their staff? Staff need to be empowered through efficacy. They need to be able to build the skills they need. And you guys are doing that right now by making the choice to attend this training today. Choice, the autonomy to make decisions and create and innovate are very important to staff and can help them feel more trusted and be able to expand their knowledge. And then the shared power with decision making. One of the biggest stresses for teachers and staff is being told what they have to do rather than being part of the decision making process and having input into what works and what is within their window of tolerance to be able to support. And then transparency. If you don't have transparency, again, mistrust comes into place. We see a lot of rumors develop, misinformation gets spread around, and people freak out. And then that dignity. Dignity must be guaranteed. We all have value and self-worth, and it's more than a massage chair. How do organizations help staff feel valued? Well, first steps are step 1 and 2, and then you can take it further. But first and foremost, ensuring every person has value and is seen to be valuable. And then that work-life balance. We have to model it and we have to guarantee it. We have to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of others or our students. So we're going to send you into a breakout session for 10 minutes. And we would like you to look from an organizational and system standpoint. What is going well in your organization that would support the implementation of trauma-informed teaching? And what is one thing that could be strengthened? And how do you propose to do that? So before you go into the breakout, make sure you have your Jamboard up, and you can assign someone to capture your group's thoughts, or you can all capture them together, however you want to do it. And when we get in the chat or back into the breakout rooms, we will repost these questions so that you have them.
It looks like most of them got in there.
Okay, I'll start going in.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm just going to go in and out of rooms. So we got a bunch of them. So I'm just going in, floating in and out. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
I have a voice. I can only listen. I've got
Gotcha. How's everybody's, or how do you guys feel organizational wise? How are your organizations that you're with, your school or whatever programs you're doing? How are they in their readiness and the capacity to support this kind of work? What do you think?
The Boys and Girls Club that I work for, we're very ready. That's why we're doing the trainings, and we see the need, so we want to meet the need.
That's awesome. Are you able to put some things on that Jamboard? I mean, I think some of those things that you're like, we are ready because we know this, and this, and we're checking those babies off and we're ready. I think that's good for people to see because it's hard to assess. I mean, if you're not really into the MTSS world and doing all those things, it's hard to really have a good assessment of where your building's at or what's going on, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So anything's helpful, I think, for people to see that, that's a good indicator we're on the right track, or we got some work to do. Christina, what about you?
Well, I think our school is making some positive forward moves. We are still reacting a lot because it's a middle high school situation. And these are the kids that came from COVID, and we're having some issues with behaviors and even identifying the kids that are in trouble. Unfortunately, sometimes when that identity is made, it's because there's been a situation. So we're working on it.
Yeah.
I'll say that we're working on it.
It sounds like that. So where are you at, Christina?
Miami.
In Miami.
I'm at Model Lakes Academy in Miami.
Okay. One of the things that a part of our Colorado MTSS is that it's the commitment to assessment and kind of figuring out where we're at, and so doing some of that work up front. So there is a way to try to figure out what the staff's capacity is, and those ways of figuring out what students might be at risk. I mean, we can't ask them, how many adverse childhood experiences have you had? I wish we could, right? But we can't. But there's other ways. I mean, we know in our team meetings and stuff, kids struggling, and you can get some sort of idea of where people are at, so that you can find the right strategies and find the right approach to work. And so I know that's one of the things we really push, is just making sure that we're doing some of that upfront work and trying as much assessment and data collection as we can. I mean, it's tedious, but it really helps us get, further down the road and the right way, instead of missteps. And then you get frustrated and you're like, hate this,
Right.
Yeah. All right. You guys are awesome. What's that?
Well, for myself, I prepare this little piece of paper, a little card, and it's called a personal pause pass.
Oh, nice.
And on this pass, I give one to each child at the beginning, and they can go get a drink of water. They can go sit outside the classroom in a space where I can see them, take deep breaths. They can take a walk down to the end of the hall where I can see them and come back, but they can use this personal pause pass whenever they want to kind of help them regroup, because you don't always know what's going on and you don't know the histories. So I give them that, and they're always able to use it in my class. And it is a problem because they always want to use it somewhere else. Yeah. And all the teachers are not on board with that.
And that is beautiful. I mean, that is so empowering for kids and so honoring who they are and what's been going on. I mean, it's beautiful. And I wish everybody did that. I mean, Yeah, that's the work. I mean, that it can happen grassroots, right? It can happen from one classroom and but yeah, that you just illustrated perfectly the dangers of not looking at it from an organizational standpoint, because this poor kid, right, like they're doing really well, and then they go to somebody else's class and they know what works. I mean, they're developing this strategy that works, but then they're not allowed to do it. It's like,
Right.
oh my goodness. We were talking, Sierra and I were just talking about that, because we're like, oh man, I fidget in my chair. And she's like, yeah, someone told me I was unprofessional doing that. And it's a strategy I figured out to help me stay kind of calm when I get nervous. And I was like, even as adults, right? Like,
Yes, it's
like,
true.
I've spent 50 years figuring out how to keep myself regulated. Now you're going to tell me I'm unprofessional. All right. That's awesome. All right. You keep talking. I got to go. We got like 3 minutes. I got to go check in on another group. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Uh-oh. Let's talking about the weather.
Can't hear you, Zach. You're muted.
Pardon?
Well, that's funny. It automatically muted me. I said, watch out. I'm recording now.
That's why we stopped talking about the weather there, sir.
That's good. Now, how you guys doing? How's your guys' organizations looking?
Mine's great.
Nice.
We had
Organization in
this,
regards to what?
Like how you guys set up, like whatever program or school you're in, how is it set up for, being trauma, informed and using doing some of the tried and true strategies we'll get into more of, but how's it feel as an organization? Is it ready? Does it have the capacity to do this work? I mean, do you feel supported in this work? You guys are obviously passionate about it if you're here, I'm assuming. How's the rest of the organization?
I think it's a work in progress, because we have identified some children that really honestly is out of our scope of support. They need a lot more. They need more outside support, that trying to get the parents on board as to like this, this is the best. We can only provide so much for your student, your child. Now we need you to be on board as a team member and support them on the outside. And so that's where we're at with a couple of our kids right now.
Yeah. Have you guys, I mean, are you from Colorado, Kim?
Yes.
Okay. So, in that Colorado MTSS model, right, a big part of that is the family community partnering. And I know one of the programs I instituted at our district when I was there was restorative practices. But the parent pushback was huge, like I mean, I didn't blame them. I was super passionate about it. I didn't engage with them, right? They didn't understand what it was. They thought it was, let's sing Kumbaya and say, I'm sorry. They wanted accountability. And I'm like, no, this is all about accountability. So just for like, when we think of organization wise, I mean, it includes the family community, because we're going to do things that might to them seem super progressive, but as educators, we're like, this is just what we do. Right. And I think a lot of it is just, they were so unaware. And once we did a whole parent thing, a whole evening, a couple of them, a series for them to truly understand. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Why wasn't this around when I was a kid? Right. And you're like, it was just, and they were the negative ones. They were coming at the principal hard, and it was, so just as you guys think of that, that's just another layer. I mean, that's why it's not easy. Like when we talk about that organizational structure stuff, it is a heavy, heavy lift. All right, I guess we're going back, but good luck.
No, in 56 seconds.
Oh, we got 56 seconds. Oh, sorry. It was telling me to get out of there. All right.
Actually 50.
Oh, I have 0. Okay. Do you? I have 0. I better get back. I better get back until it kicks me out. So, all right, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Donna, you're muted if you're talking.
Just giving everyone a few seconds to come back from virtual land. And Zach will reshare the presentation.
I am. Hey, I did good this time. I didn't leave the meeting. I just left the breakout room. So I'm learning. It's really
Good.
kind of proud of myself. Oh,
So it looks like all breakout rooms are not yet closed, Zach. They're
My
closing in
share-
5 seconds.
and I'll share again. Yeah, I don't. Mine said 0 minutes on mine, but then they were saying in theirs that it had more time. So I'm not exactly sure.
All right, well, we're back.
Okay.
Everybody's back. So would anyone like to unmute and share a little bit of just quick 20 seconds what you talked about in your breakout room, what one thing is going well, what one thing you would like to work on? Any brave souls?
Yes, my name is Jonathan. I work at the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Austin, Texas. And one thing, actually, for my breakout room, I got paired with another coworker, so we had a lot to talk about. But basically, common, like a really thing we like is the systematic approach to when incidents occur. That there's a tracking system, and then there's like a collaboration of documented data, and then taking an approach with a behavioral intervention plan. And then there's often assessments regarding, like, is this working or is this not working? What strategy is going to use next? And then the thing we didn't like is just the different teaching styles as like instructors, that there's not always like a consistent basis on how their methodology of teaching and discipline happens. Like we have one instructor who's, I'm sorry, this is more than 20 seconds, but basically one instructor talks pretty more firmly and can come off as harsh and assertive, but then there's one who's more soft-spoken, more, cheery. So it's like not really a consistent teaching style of personality.
And that's hard for kids. Again, those kids that have kind of grown up in a really chaotic environment where they don't know where the adult's coming from, that those behaviors change, it's chaotic. So, just, I guess, awareness too, that could be triggering, and just to be aware of that, I think that's something that happens in schools all around the country. I mean, Donna and I came from a district where all the schools are huge. My middle school had 1,100 kids. I had 75 staff. So it was going to be different. I mean, there's going to be different personalities, but it was just that kind of awareness that, hey, and talking to that teacher, you're different style, but you got Johnny coming in your class. So, just beware of what that, I don't know. It is difficult though. I agree. That's a hard thing. Thank you for sharing, Jonathan. All right, felt safety. So we're going to go through that nice A, B, C, D, E, and hopefully help people remember. But really what we're talking about is how do we create an experience for ourselves? Because remember, there's many of us that have our own traumatic backgrounds, right? Our own triggers, our own things, our own biases, right? Coming into education. So how do we create an environment where we feel and the youth feel safe to learn? And that's what it's about, right? Growing and learning and failing safely, all those kind of things. And when stuff happens, because it's going to, how do we respond with love, grace, and patience? That's what felt safety is. So that's the goal. That's what we're going to try to accomplish with some of these strategies. And yes, adult, it starts with you. It really is important that you actually, there's some things that we have to commit to as the adult, right? And it's really important to know ourselves. It's really important for us to identify our own triggers, our own things. And so when there's some tools we've got in here that can help you. This ACEs quiz, this is a great tool. You can take this and kind of learn what it is and what it is not. Remember, trauma is measured by impact, not event. So you might have had adverse childhood experiences, but that might have affected you differently than someone else. So just remember keeping that in mind as you go through this. But it is nice to know, and it's helpful to know so that you can start to create your own plan. This link here, again, you'll get this presentation. This link There's a lot of resources, a lot of questions to ask yourself. What would I need? What do I need in situations when I get triggered or I'm just stressed? And what are some things that could help me? Because those are going to be really important. And then the Harvard implicit bias test. Many of you may have taken that. It's pretty incredible to take it. We all have implicit bias, every single person ever. But sometimes it gets to be explicit and does some harm. So we want to be aware of that. So do some of these things. Know thyself. It really is important as you engage in this work, because this is very demanding work. So adult SEL, right? Adult SEL is really important. Understanding, we get this from the Castle 5 framework, right? The 5 things: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship building skills, and responsible decision-making. All these things that we want kids to do, but we have to be able to do them first, right? It's very difficult, I think, for us to tell kiddos to self-manage when we can't self-manage our emotions and our stress, when we have trouble identifying our own emotions and then having effective strategies in place, right? So when you're thinking about this SEL work, right, for yourself. So if you're engaging this is an initiative in your school, really take this in and apply it to yourself too in your own learning. Are you able to do it, right? Because if you are, then you're modeling it. It builds our foundation. It builds the kids' foundations. I love this from Turnaround Children. A lot of you've probably seen this diagram, but I love it because what it really is articulating is we don't get to that higher level of learning until we take care of all that stuff at the base, right? Maslow's before Bloom's. Everyone's heard that. We got to help kids be able to do these things, manage stress and self-regulation, all these good things before we can actually start getting them to be creative, self-directed thinkers and learners. We know the power of modeling. We know it's important. So that's why we want to do that. And that's why it's important that we're modeling it. We don't want to do this, right? It's not a do what I say, not as I do, said the hypocrite. Kids are so smart. They're so perceptive. Being a trusted adult carries a lot of responsibility, and kiddos really do see what we're doing, and they'll model the effectiveness and the positive strategies. They'll also model, unfortunately, the negative ones. So let's try the best we can. And yes, guess what? This does involve self-care. And I'm not trying to be condescending here. I know this word can be a bad word. I'm not saying that the inefficiencies of a system and an organization, right? Those things that can cause harm to our educators, because it is a very difficult job. I'm not saying we engage in self-care so we can put up with more bad stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But this job inherently, if an organization was perfect, teaching, working with children is still very demanding, and we have to take care of ourselves. We have to find a healthy network. We need to make time for our passions. We need to create balance in our life. We need to advocate for ourselves and have those skills. We need to build our efficacy, which you're doing right now, right? Our confidence in managing behaviors, our confidence in dealing with mental health issues, all those kind of things. We got to dig into that. We have to help figure out what helps us and our emotions. And we need to learn about these things, right? We need to learn that burnout, secondary stress syndrome, and compassion fatigue are normal, especially in this profession. A lot of you are from care centers and treatment centers and residential centers. Like, this is normal because this is hard. It's my favorite quote in this. It's saying it's like swimming and not getting wet, right? You are going to feel the impact of this work, even just in education as a classroom teacher. There's a lot that we deal with. It's going to take its toll. So we have to take care of ourselves. All right. We need you to get in there to the Jamboard and take a couple of minutes here to reflect. I need you to just think of a you plan, right? What will you commit to doing for you? Remember, here's some of these things that in this slide right here, some things that you can think about. What is it that you can do to prepare yourself for this work every day? Go in there, go to that Jamboard. Let's write it down for people, right? This is very, very important because the work you're going to engage in is hard. Okay. Go into that Jamboard. There, we should get that in the chat. Or if you already have that link from before, you go back in there, look for the page and create that you plan. Write a couple things on a sticky. Please share your brilliance. I know there's a lot of you out there that are really taking care of yourselves, and let's give some effective ones that are working for you, and maybe someone else that might resonate for someone else. Just take like a minute or two. And Donna, you can see that again.
Yeah, I can, Zach, sorry.
Okay, when I click on that link, it's telling me that I cannot, sorry, unable to open the file at this time.
That is, I'm sorry. I'm not sure why that is happening for some people.
If not, you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, put in.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm seeing self-talk, taking more time to take nature photographs, meditation, audiobooks on their way home, spend time with family and friends, not talking about the job, attending sessions like this to collaborate with colleagues and learn strategies, breathe, take a break, take care of my needs when I'm feeling I'm about to lose it or get triggered, quiet reading time, laugh, humor, family, dates, walks, hikes, happy hour, commit. Somebody wrote 1, I will commit to blank, 2, start a blank, talk to someone about a blank and understand more about. So like a guiding thought process to commit. And then designate time when not working and practicing mindfulness.
Very good. That's some really good ones. Good. Well, I hope everyone can think of one that they can do.
And then now, next part, A, B, we're getting into belonging. Again, going back to that dignity, that's different from respect. We're going to talk about that. Inherent self-worth, accepting yourself for who you are, not trying to be somebody you're not or keep up with the person next to you. Connection, purpose, and of course, those cultural, historical, and gender issues. So we want to be able to model a functional family. And for many students impacted by ACEs, that's a novel construct. They haven't had that family approach. Everything, like Zach said earlier, has been up and down, unpredictable. And then the adult in the families is in charge of creating that felt safety. So who is the adult in our classrooms? Typically the teachers, might be an educational assistant, could be the principal, could be the cafeteria worker. It could sometimes be the custodian in the hallways. Everyone needs to know how to create that sense of belonging to a family. And questions to ask. Is there evidence of family meetings? So in a school, it might look like that morning meeting, circle time, or just dedicated time to connect. Elementary school teachers usually start their day with a morning meeting by talking about the time, the weather, the calendar. Well, we can just add in some check-ins into that. Some questions. Who had breakfast today? Simple things to get to know our students and build that family. Greeting students at the door to welcome them in. When I do walkthroughs in schools, I always look, or teachers standing in the hallways during passing periods, talking to students, engaging with them rather than sitting at their desk waiting for kids to come in. Putting up pictures of students and their work, just like we do on the refrigerator at home. Affirmation of each person's uniqueness and value, both educationally and personally, not just saying, oh, you got a good grade on this, but team, everyone here did a good job. Here's what you all did, or here's what you might want to do next. I love the color of your hair. Nice shirt, Johnny. Things like that can help them feel seen, and even just greeting each student by name, making sure every student hears their name at least once a day or as much as possible, because that's the most important thing to a person is their name. The sharing of power, letting students make choices, have input into their learning. You may say, here's the standard we have to do. This is the work we have to get to. Ideas of how we want to get there. And then safe place to make mistakes. Make sure that students understand it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of the learning process. And if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. And we want to create those opportunities for taking responsibility, letting and being held accountable. and letting them do it in a way that's loving and not punishing. And then focus on the repairing harm and conflict. Again, not punishing them, but owning what's happened and creatively coming up with solutions, and then having them come back into the classroom community as a member and part of that family, because you can't leave your family. We're all together no matter what. So again, take a moment and think about, what are you already doing? And then what will you commit to ensure students or staff feel like they belong in your community? Doesn't have to be this big thing, but what's one thing you could do? Maybe it is, I'm going to stand outside my door and greet each student by name when they're entering. Something as simple as that. Or I'm going to, in the morning, check in and see who had breakfast, check in and see who walked to school, who got dropped off at school. Ask different questions. And again, if you could capture your ideas on the Jamboard so that others can get ideas from you, maybe you'll get ideas from them as well. Give you a couple seconds to do that. And as you're doing that, I'll go in and read some of the ideas that we're seeing in here. So greeting them each day. One person said they used to greet their students at the door. Not sure why they stopped, but use circles to keep and want to keep doing that, and need to be no more intentional about celebrating students. Another, learning about students and following up on what they share. Great, yep. Checking in with them. Going to focus more on our time together to do things together. Brought donuts for this week for the class because no one got an F on a test. You celebrated our accomplishment. Try to remember each name and make an effort to call them by name. A community meeting to check how they are feeling and on their goals. Have snacks available. Oh, yep. And you know, actually that snack thing, I was in a teacher's classroom observing in a small rural district here in Colorado. And rather than that teacher going to her desk and just letting the kids eat snacks, she made it like a family community meal. Everybody sat around the table, ate their snacks with the teacher eating her snack together, and they just visited. It felt like they were a family sitting around a table.
That's awesome. Yeah, that family structure is huge.
So simple.
So simple. The C is collaboration. Okay, so we all kind of know what collaboration is in school and these kind of things. There's a lot of collaboration. We really want to communicate that we're all in this together. This is part of sharing power, part of that autonomy and choice. If we're all contributing to our classroom environment, to our learning, it really matters. It's a really important thing. There's a nice model here from Dr. Rock here. It's called the SCARF model. And it really is talking about social situations. Are these situations that our kids find ourselves in with their teachers, with their peers? Is this an award? Like, is this a positive thing that makes me feel like I'm part of something, or is it a threat? Okay, and I want to go through this because for our children that have experienced adverse childhood experiences, if it feels like a threat, we're going to have some issues. And just think about that school environment. We're socially interacting all the time. The S is status, right? Is there a pecking order? If they don't feel like as more of equals, if they always feel like, oh, that's Zach, he's the favorite kid, this and that, and all those kinds of things, right? Well, then, bam, we're going to have some issues. So how do we create authentic opportunities in the classroom that everyone is going to get some positive feedback? Zach, I saw you working really hard. Might have not been an A on the test, but I saw you working. You really paid attention today, Zach. That's a feat, right? Like, so these things, these are all important. Certainty, the predictability. We've talked about how important predictability is for kids with the trauma background, right? So have clear expectations of what's going on in the class every day. Have a plan, put it on the board, right? It's important for them to know that I'm coming to this teacher. It's predictable. I know what's going to happen. Think of an entire organization. If I knew that no matter what classroom I went in, there was things in place, how amazing that would be. And that's why we emphasize that. Autonomy, the A in SCARF, sense of control, decision-making, and power. We've talked about that. How do we create that in the classroom where kids get to make some of the decisions, where they get to contribute on the expectations in the classroom? How do we sense that there's safety with friends or foes, right? How do we build those skills? A lot of our kiddos, if they had those traumatic backgrounds in those dysfunctional families, they don't know how to build relationships. They're coming to us with a huge deficit. So we got to teach those skills. How do you make friends? How do you have a disagreement? How do you do work in a group? Does it feel fair? Remember, a kiddo that's impacted by adverse childhood experiences, life doesn't feel very fair to them. They feel like there's a lot of bias and injustice. Think of some communities, that kind of stuff, the bigger picture, right? We need to make sure that they have a chance to co-create expectations and that accountability is consistent, right? Whatever you've decided in that class, that is not just certain kids benefit from or not, or whatever, or held accountable, everybody. So those are the SCARF model. Think about this real quick. We're not going to do this because we're kind of running a little bit behind, but I just want you to think about really quick, what are you doing and what could you do in that SCARF model? Right? Think of the SCARF. What could you do that could help create that sense of collaboration? We'll give you a little bit. And again, you'll have this presentation so you guys can reference this. Oh, you're muted, Donna.
Going on to de-escalation for D, first thing, we have to recognize when you are getting dysregulated. We have to teach ourselves and our students how to do this. Pause and assess. Is this an emergency safety situation where I need to remove myself, or is it something that I can work through? And if it's something you can work through, regulate it. Name it to tame it. I'm getting angry. Why am I getting angry? I've got this. And then pick a strategy that works and a time to use it. Might be a mindful movement, water, snack, peer support. At our last training, Zach mentioned the 90-second rule. It takes us 90 seconds to calm ourselves when we're getting that trigger, when we get that flight freeze indicator. Give yourself that space to do that. Teach your students that awareness, and then respond, that state-dependent de-escalation. So recognize, regulate, respond. What does that state-dependent de-escalation look like? Again, are they in safety seeking? Here are some strategies to do that. The key is to recognize where the person is, state it, and then engaging with the appropriate strategy. So if you see yourself freezing, oh, I'm freezing, what are some things I can do? Calm breathing, quiet, safe presence. Indicators that the student is ready for the next state is when they seek safety appropriately, they re-engage back into the rhythm. Maybe there's some pressure, but they're coming back in. You can use temperature activities. They're more calm and alert. They're regulated physiologically, and then they attend to the environment. And when we say those temperature activities, there could be an up, I'm okay, no, I'm okay, I'm not like this, pointing to an emoji if they can't, or articulating, okay, I'm ready. Or I'm at a 1 through 10, I'm at a 10 still. And then we move to that regulatory. So sending some safe nonverbal cues, the empathy, the adult provides that empathy, making eye contact if the student is not threatened or able to make eye contact. Again, just slowly re-engage in the rhythm that the student is at. Communicate with gestures, less words sometimes when somebody's escalated, providing that personal space. And the student may be ready to engage in sensory activities. They might accept an idea that you give them for calming themselves. They may even smile at you or accept that comfort. And I just want to take a second. I had a student who would bang his head into a wall. And I just took a step back and was watching, and he was actually putting his foot down in front before he was hitting his head. So I took a step back, I calmly sat down and I waited. And before long, he turned around to see what I was doing. And because I wasn't reacting, just sitting there, he came and sat next to me. And I could see he was still breathing heavily. So I just waited and breathed normally. He started breathing normally. And then I said, "Are you ready to talk?" And he's like, "No, I'm not ready to talk. I'm really tired." So I let him go into my classroom and take a little short nap. And when he woke up, we just said, I said, "What happened?" And he started talking to me. And then we got through that. And then he rejoined the classroom. He was ready to rejoin. And then those social emotional relationships. The adult can use supportive words, engage in those back and forth communication, practice active listening, seeking to understand, validating, not telling them you should have done this or next time do this, but really listening and affirming their feelings. And then the student is ready when they're using words to communicate. They can maybe draw or write. They may ask or show you. And then that cognitive engagement. You want to model thinking and planning. Talk about the situation, what might have happened, form plans for next time. And the student's ready when they can process information rationally. They can link their feelings to their actions. They may engage in problem solving and be able to articulate, like my little student did, here's what I can do next. And so what we want to do is so important with de-escalation to build a plan with your students before things happen. Whether it's a universal plan for all students, here's what happens when you feel like you're out of control or triggered, to here's what I need to do for just you. And it's helpful to be aware of things. Is there a person? Where can you go? What are your triggers? Digging deeper, have you ever been restrained? Do you have a preference of gender for staff helping you? Because maybe their trauma came from a different gender and that gender itself triggers them. And then asking what might make you feel safe here.
The environment is the E. And so first thing is when we look at how are we creating this environment? Do you have what you need to stay regulated? So you identified some things in a plan for yourself. Do you have that available? If water is a thing, if snacks are a thing for you, if whatever it is, if you use regulation tools, fidget toy things, do you have that for yourself so that you're prepared when things start to unravel, that you can regulate? Does the space communicate? So in your classroom, your office, whatever that is, does it communicate, hey, you are safe here, you belong here? Are there collaboration spaces? We talked about the C, that collaboration. Is there a place for them to do that? Can we talk? Is there a private spot where you and the kid and the teacher can speak, right? Are there those things? Are there resources for de-escalation, using tools, using those things that Donna just talked about? Is there a private place to breathe, to reflect, to color in a book, to draw, to do some mindful breath? We call them calm down corners a lot of places, or regulation corners, something like that. Is the space, is the classroom organized? And I know that some people, like if you looked at my desk, you'd be like, man, you need to model that, right? But it is important for these kiddos. Is the space organized, uncluttered, accessible, escapable, right? You're like, escapable? Think about this. Kiddos that have undergone really traumatic childhoods, part of that response could be flight. They got to get to safety. So where are they seated? Are there avenues for kiddos to leave the classroom? We're like, no, we don't want them to leave the classroom. Yes, you do. Because if you don't let a kiddo that is dysregulated and gone into survival brain, it's not going to be good, right? We can deal with it. That's where we set those structures up. Let them get out of there. That is them coping with the stress. So if you were to do an environmental scan and you were to look in your classroom, would there be evidence of these things? Could you see that there was relationship building happening? Those stories, those photos, the work on the wall, all those kind of things. Are there jobs and assignments, charts, right? We want to feel like we belong. Do I have a chart? Do I feed the goldfish every day? Is it my job to pick up the trash? Is it whatever that is? Do I have that? Are classroom expectations clearly marked so I don't have to remember them? That's stressful, right? If I remember, oh, that's right, this is how we do this and that. Like those things are really important. Values from the class, like our class values, are they up there for a reminder? The agenda for the day I already talked about, but as you walk in and look at your classroom, would you see that? Would it communicate like, hey, this is a predictable classroom? Things to put away, organized and labeled, a regulation space, the tools that you need. We talked about the collaboration space. Are supplies and things easily available? Like if you say, go get the construction paper, go get the glue, is that easy for them to go do? Do they know where that is? Good messages. Are we using calm sounds and music? We can use singing bowls or chimes. So do lighting, snacks, or do you have some available? You see, there's all kinds of great things. We want to make sure there's no point sheets or clothespins or go move yourself to red. Those things are very harming. Okay, we don't want to see evidence of those at all. So no public point sheets, right? None of that kind of stuff. Maybe restorative practices or SEL going on, celebrating kids. And I said easy and access out of the room. All right. So we are going to do a nice long breakout. We gave you a bunch of information, a lot of stuff, but we want you to collaborate with each other. We want you to look at and talk to each other about what questions do you have about this work? What ideas do you have to share? What is something you're going to work for? Our goal really is that you, from this information, you can come up with some a longer term goal or outcome that you can achieve. I am going to really work towards this, getting my classroom set up, talking to my administration about how we're going to do this in a continued layer of supports. And then two short-term strategies that you could start right away, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, a couple of things that you could do to really create that felt safety, to really create an organization that is responsive to kiddos responding with trauma. The cool thing about this, remember, is all this stuff works, right? For all kids, okay? All right, let's go into our breakouts. And we're going to be in there for 15 minutes and then we're going to come back. Well, we made up our time, Donna. We did good.
Yeah. Just stay with me for a second, Zach.
Yeah.
Let's see. Not everybody's in the breakout room yet.
We had quite a few people drop off, so the breakout rooms are different this time. Sorry,
That's
guys.
fine. That's good. I was going to tell you, I was going to message you and I forgot because the breakout room I went into had two people on the phone. So I ended up staying in it the whole time.
Okay.
Oh, Dr. Johnson needs us to reassign him.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I love that. I've never been called doctor. I love it.
I saw the D and I said doctor.
Yeah, I love it.
It's got a good ring to it for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Dr. Johnson.
I love
All
it.
right,
Thank
you should
Penny.
be reassigned. Hope that works.
Okay, Zach, did you see that question that Greta asked?
I didn't.
So it says, do you have suggestions for doing this for classes that don't have a consistent space when we are guests at a satellite campus in an outdoor classroom, et cetera? So when they come back, we'll want to maybe address that.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question.
Yep. I mean, what I'm thinking is you can carry your toolkit with you. And then when you get to that space, just look around and say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. There's a water fountain everywhere, I'm sure.
Right.
You can take a lap down the hallway. You can use those strategies no matter where.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely challenging, but for sure. I think there's definitely ways you can kind of problem solve around that. Yeah. I like the cart. Like we had teachers on their cart would have a big basket of the regulation tools. They'd actually had kids make their own. And so they just would bring them. So they had them available.
Or leave a box in the office.
Yeah.
Counselors are a great office to leave stuff in like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll start joining some.
Are you okay with skipping? I skipped some of those just because.
Yeah, no, we got back on track. It's perfect.
Yeah. I was like, oh, we're going to skip that. Okay. All right. Are you going to go into rooms?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to head in.
Okay.
See how everybody's doing. I will go to 6.
Where we're not. Hi, Zach.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep talking. I'm just popping in and out of different rooms.
That's okay. I was just referring to what you were saying about the importance of teachers being self-reflective and being aware of our own biases and our own challenges and our own triggers. And that's something incorporated in a training that I work with as well. So important.
It really is. I mean, you could spend a whole training, a whole day on that, but yeah, I think so much of this is about mindset and just in that shift in understanding and like the grace, right? To just be okay with it. Like, I don't like when I get triggered, but it just happens because of life. And then I need to try to do the things I need to do for myself.
Yeah.
You know?
And it may not be a bias, it may be,
Yeah.
I had a fight with my husband, you know what I mean? It's called normal everyday challenges. So it's not necessarily a bias, it's called everyday life.
Yeah.
There's some biases, that's true, but it's a part. Life is just, it has so many different nerves, life that you don't know what's going to get touched at that moment. And it could be a sort of a bias, but it could also be something that's going on. You could have a sick person at home, you could have somebody could be going through something really serious. So say that it's just a bias, I think we're hearing that so much more often now, instead of saying, teachers are much more than that. We're people, we may have biases, but we also have feelings and we have things going on in our families too. So I think to say that is a little unfair, because I think it's a culmination of so many different things.
Oh, yeah, totally. And when I say that, I don't mean to say that it's only biased like that way. I mean, like myself, I have, if I share my adverse childhood, I have 5+ adverse childhood experiences in my childhood. So I have different triggers. It's not a bias, but safety is a big trigger for me. So when I see things not being safe, I go to like I have to be aware of that, right? And if I'm stressed, if I had a fight with my wife, my breaking point is not like some people. Some people just can take more, and I know that I can't because of some of the things in my background. So it's, yeah, totally. That's not the conversation. It's not all about bias. That's an element of it. Like there is that element to be aware of, but a lot of it just has to be with awareness of yourself. What are your triggers? What stresses you out? What, when you see kids, like I talked to a young lady that just started her career in an SSN program. It was a really severe needs, emotional. And she's telling me her experience with bullying. And when she sees 2 kids getting into it, she gets super angry and loses it. And I was like, you're in a school for emotionally challenged kiddos. Are you sure this is the place for you? Right? Because she was re-traumatizing herself every day. And then her reaction wasn't positive for the students because, again, that was her trigger. And so she went into survival mode, and then she's like, rah! And these kids are like, ah. And so those are the kind of things that it's just so important to be aware of that and like do that self-work and say, all right, this is what I need. When this kid comes and says, F you, Hess, I can't like punch him, right? That's going to be bad. I'll go to jail. So I got to think of other things to do, right?
But we wouldn't do that to our kids. You know what I mean? So if we treat our kids, our own students like our kids, sometimes I want to strangle my kids, but I don't do that. I love them, right? Same thing with our students. We want to strangle them sometimes, but we know that, we got to give them grace,
Yeah. And too, some days I can give a lot of grace and some days I can't because of life. right?
Right,
And
right.
I would also add that I think that students really respect when teachers can own that they've made a mistake or own that they've done something. So like something in our school is really working on phone privileges in the classroom, which is a huge issue, as you all know.
Yeah.
And, but teachers setting a really good example and being consistent with what the expectation is for the students, I think is so big, and making sure that they're not on their phone all the time and they're setting that example of what's appropriate, what's not. And when a school gives the latitude to the teacher to do what they want and they all choose a different way, I think that is just so, I understand it's hard to do it all the same way, but I wish that they could. Like everybody have the same system of every classroom you walk into, you check your phone or something, because they'll pull it out in one class and then the next class that teacher's strict. And I know teachers have to do what works for them in their classroom, but yeah, that's just one issue where you're being consistent and being a good role model for them.
But there's balance for sure. That balance is it is really important. So when I look at it from a trauma informed and trauma responsive lens, there's some things that we don't have a lot of choice in. We have to have some consistency for these kiddos. And I'm sorry that might not, you might be okay with phones in it, but if Johnny can have his phone in one and then not in another, you are just made that other teacher's life miserable. And I don't think that's okay. Right. It's like that's not good for anybody. So that's the part of that organizational thing. I think it's the biggest challenge. Like me in control of myself and my classroom, got it. But when you're leading a building and trying to build that stuff in, it takes a lot of work. And so this isn't like, oh, tomorrow we're all going to be trauma informed. This is a 2 to 4 year process. I mean, you're talking about system change, and that's scary. So there's a lot of work that goes into that for sure.
Well, and that's actually why I sought out this workshop on my own. Like it wasn't even the school advocating for it. This is a career change for me. I'm doing student support in an at-risk school. And I don't know if you've heard of it, Zach. There's a nonprofit called Colorado Youth for a Change. And they put, they have an AmeriCorps program, but they put student support members in different high schools, or they have like 4 different programs. They have a math program, a reading core program, and then myself, like I'm in a high school, and I just lost my train of thought, like why I was telling you that. What was I saying?
Why you signed up for this?
Why you were taking this?
Why you were taking this?
Oh, right. Thank you. Sorry, long day. And I don't know. It's just, I wish that they were even consistent with their trainings that they're offering staff and new staff that are coming in. Like I recognized immediately, like I needed more resources and I needed more tools in my toolbox so I can be as effective as I can be with my students. Because I have a caseload of students I meet with, and they all have their own situations, and you just want to make sure that you feel supported, that you can support them. So I would have appreciated a little bit more, but I'm okay. I'm the type of person, I will seek it out for myself and find it. Through the nonprofit, like they're great. They train you on a lot of things before you get into the school, but the schools themselves should also be backing that training up so that all their staff is consistent with how they want to approach it in their school.
Amen. That's hard. I mean, I even think students coming in, I mean, just brand new teachers coming in. I offered all the universities in Colorado, like I will come and do this for free because you're giving me educators into my district that you're filling them with this, like, it's so wonderful and everything's great and you're going to make a difference. And then, which is true, there's all of that, but you're not being realistic and helping them understand and giving them strategies when things aren't, because that's just life. And it's really frustrating. And then that's why they burn out in 5 years. I mean, that's why teachers, we lose them. That's within the first 5 years. And that's why they don't want to continue with this profession. And that's why educators are the #1 most stressed out profession in the United States since 2014.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we gotta, it's a whole system thing. I mean, with educate, we got to really give our people the resources they need and the skills that they come right into this and be ready and prepared. Like, I love that you can write a lesson plan. That's awesome. However, that thing goes out the window in about 5 minutes.
I would say that when I got into this school, it didn't take me too long to identify the people who still had like a really healthy perspective and a strong heart for this work. And I could tell the people who had already checked out but they were just there because this is their job, but their heart wasn't in it for the kids anymore. They're done. And then you come in with fresh energy and, you know, it's like kind of a changing of the guard, right? Like, and yeah, so anyways, it's just interesting when you can go into something new and see that so clearly.
And it's normal. Like that's a thing. I don't want to shame people for being burned out. I've been burned out. I've had compassion fatigue where I'm just done.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's a very difficult, it's a very demanding job. And so that's why we have to find these things that help us get through and find that joy and that love of this, because it is amazing. It's amazing to serve these kiddos and you know, and do this work, but it's hard. It's really hard. Yeah. All right. We talked a lot. Did you guys come up with like a long-term goal and like a couple of things you can do right away as you get out of here? We got like a minute. I'll let you guys reflect on that. I'm going to go back to the main room and get everything set up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. All right, Sierra, is everything good? Can you see my screen and everything?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I got out of that a little early so I could get this all set up.
Good idea. Yeah, they should be coming back soon. They just got the 60-second.
Okay, good. So now I can see Dr. Johnson there.
Oh, I love that.
Would you mind putting that link in the chat so that I can
I just did.
Thank you.
What do you love, Miss Johnson?
That they were calling me Mrs. They were calling me Dr. Johnson, but I also love Miss Jackson, who just responded to me as well.
Oh.
So for those of you just getting back, I put the link to this form or feedback survey in the chat. And in this survey, you'll also find the link to your certificate at the bottom.
And the survey is how you fill out for your email, giving us feedback about what you want to see next, what you want us to do differently. And also, like Sierra said, your certificate is in there. When we get your survey completed, your email will be in there and we'll be able to send you the recording and all the materials from today's session.
Yeah, we went through some stuff pretty quick, so you guys will all have this and you can dig in.
And then remember, oh, go ahead, sorry.
The meeting that we had on the 3rd of February, the part 1, I haven't received anything off of that.
Okay, drop your info in the chat, your email in the chat, and we will make sure you get it.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
We had some difficulties, but also sometimes when you're typing in the email, it might be off one letter. So just, yeah, if you didn't get it from the last one, put your email in the chat and we'll get it to you.
Okay.
And then we can click on the next slide, guys. So remember, I heard a lot of you in breakout rooms, we'd love to do this, we'd love to do that. That's what we do. That's what we can do for you. So if you want to connect and figure out ways for us to get grant or donor funding for your school to implement some of these things, maybe it's as simple as bringing what you're already doing into a streamlined process, please feel free to reach out to us. We have grant writers within our organization, so it's not a lot of work for you all, and we work all over the nation. We can also set up virtual things if you're not in the United States. Love that from COVID, being able to connect virtually. And we're here for you if you need us, and let us know if you have questions. We are going to hang out. You can go to the next slide. Zach and Sierra and I will hang out for a little bit, and if you have questions, we'll answer them. I know before we went into the chat, we got a question about how do you do this if you're mobile? And some things that we like to do is set up your own toolkit. You can take it from place to place, or have the students at each site create their own calming strategy, their own little squeezy or whatever it is. And counselors' offices are a great place to store things. They're always happy to let you have a box there. And then also remember simple things like a walk down the hall or to get a drink. You can usually do that wherever you are. It doesn't have to be a separate room, a separate space necessarily, but you can look at the area around you, your environment, and see what you could utilize. Again, that pre-planning.
I had teachers when they had to share classrooms. It was just one of those weird years, and we got roller carts for them. So they had a cart, so they had a couple of shelves on it, and there they could store stuff. And they actually, like Donna was saying, the kids in that class created their own little like Tupperware thing of regulation tools or strategies, right? That they like, and then that just stayed on the cart with them. So when they went to that classroom, it was there and it was available. They went over the expectations of how to access that, all those things. The teachers also laminated and used like not a dry erase board because it would come off, but a marker on there to create their agenda. And then they would, roll that up. And then when they get to the classroom they're in, because they would be in like 2 different classrooms, they would just put that up on the board, either clip it in or with magnets or something. So they had it. So it's hard. It definitely is another stressor for the teachers doing that for sure. But I think there are some ways that you can still try to create some of that predictability and provide some of those tools and some of those things for those students, even though you're mobile and it's not your home classroom. I don't know if that helped.
Does anyone have any other questions for us?
Dr. Johnson.
I had one last question. I know I wasn't privy to join the first phase. Will it still be available to those who weren't on there for the first one?
Yeah, and if you drop your email in again, we can email you those. We also do post our forums to our website, but it can be tricky for some to get it. But yeah, just go ahead and put your email into the chat and we'll make sure you get both today's and the last session. Actually, as you all are talking, I'm thinking Zach and Sierra, we just send both 1 and 2 again to everyone today.
I think that'd be good. And then you said it's more difficult for them to see the recording.
No. Like we post it on our GSN website too, but it might take a bit. We'll just send both parts 1 and 2 to everyone who attended today.
Awesome.
All of the materials from 1 and 2 will be in the same folder. So when I send 2, it'll be with part 1.
Are the recordings in there too, Sierra?
Yeah.
Recording. Oh, okay. Awesome.
Anyone else have other questions for us? And feel free to go whenever you want. But also remember, we're here if you have questions or need anything from us. Even if you're having a bad day, email us.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all.
Awesome discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Hey, thank y'all so much.
Really good stuff. Really good.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
one-
Have a good evening.
I was wondering how I could get I'm not able to write the links fast enough so I don't lose them. How?
Just click on it. Click on go to the chat box and click it and it'll open up on your computer.
Right, but you gave several different links, so I'm not that tech savvy, so.
Okay, and we'll be emailing everything to you and you'll open up the folder that we email to you and everything will be in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And if you want to put your email in the chat box so that we make sure in case the survey didn't work for you, you can do that too.
Okay, that sounds great.
And then you can email if you're like, wow, it's been like a week and I haven't gotten anything, please email us on one of these then and we'll get that to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So let's see. The
Zach, we forgot to mention our next forum is on April 18th, restorative practices.
Oh, darn it. I got stuck on it and we had right there. You mean that slide?
Yeah, there we go.
Ay.
Well, they'll get it in there in the when they get
Oh.
the tool, the material.
Right. Well, for the 6 remaining, there you go.
There you go.
You're special. You get first shot signing up. All right. Should I stop recording?
Yeah.
Yes. Stop recording.